Lesson 2, Backup Types. We're going to mainly talk about an incremental backup or a selective, also known as always backup. For our incremental backups, we have incremental complete, which is going to back up all changes for a file. This is your default backup. It's going to be using journal-based backup. This means that a journal engine service is going to run. It's going to keep track of all the changes in a journal or a log rather than do a file scan. Then there's incremental by date. This is where a client is only going to back up files if their modification date and time is later than the date and time of the most recent incremental backup. Or you can have an incremental without journal. This will mean you're going to be scanning the file systems. You're not going to be using the journal database. By default, you will be using the journal database. So we've talked about our progressive incremental backup, complete, which is the default, date only or without journal. Then our selective backup, which is a full, and in the Backup Archive GUI is called always backup, is a complete full backup. Occasionally you might need to run this. Generally, most people will just run incremental forever. That means after the initial backup, even though you're calling it an incremental, it will notice that the entire file is new. Therefore, everything is changed. Everything gets backed up. You don't have to specify a selective or always backup when you first introduce a file to be backed up. It will, by default, back up the entire file. Thereafter, it will do incremental unless you want to do additional full or selective backups. We have our journal-based backups, which is by default the way we do our incrementals. There are image backups, logical volume backups, and network data management protocol or NDMP backups that you'd use for a network attached storage device. An image backup is going to be a full volume backup of a Windows client. It's like a snapshot. And a logical volume backup is what you're going to use to back up the entire logical volume. A little more about our journal-based backups. And again, this is the default for doing an incremental backup. You've got your journal engine service running. It's going to record all the changes. So all the file changes are recorded in a journal or a log. And then TSM is going to use this log to see what has changed instead of querying the server and scanning the files. So just an incremental without journal, you're going to scan the entire file system. Whereas an incremental with journal-based, you're just going to be examining the journal itself. Now next two slides are going to show you a little bit about how to tell the difference in the different types of backups. In this we have 4 files, A, B, C, and D, and 4 days of the week. File A was modified on April 4th. File B was modified April 4th. File C modified April 4th and 5th. File D was modified April 5th and April 7th. The backup window is later that same day. So files A, B, and C will be backed up on the 4th. On the 5th, well, let's see. What's going to be backed up? April 4th, A, B, and C are backed up using journal-based backup. This is incremental complete, the default. On April 5th, because files C and D changed, files C and D will be backed up. There were no changes to files on April 6th, so nothing is backed up. Then on April 7th, file D is backed up. We have the same with incremental no journaling. The only difference here would be TSM is going to scan the file system rather than look in the journal. Because our backup window is on the same day that we made changes, using incremental by date, all these files will be backed up the same as if you were doing incremental complete. If we do incremental with mode equals absolute, this is where we've set this in our management class. This means regardless if there's a change, you will do a backup. That's the mode equals absolute when you set that up with your management class. All the files are backed up. Same with a selective backup. With a selective backup, the entire files A, B, C, and D are backed up on all 4 days. Now we're going to step back out of the client world and into the server world just for a second to talk about backup sets. A backup set is a portable backup. This is ideal for if you're traveling, you don't have access to the server or the network. You basically, with the server, define a backup set. You write this backup set to removable media, for example, a CD-ROM or a DVD-ROM. Then you can use your backup archive client to access that from your removable media that you can use on your system, your backup archive client that is not connected to the network. You can do this also if you are connected to a network, but the benefit with a backup set is that it is portable. You can generate backup sets in the administration center or with the command line. Here's an example. You're going to define your backup set. The client, we're going to give it a name, important data. Device class, this type is using CD-ROM. We're going to list the volumes, our retention, and a description. Again, this is something that you set up with the server. The administrator must run this, but the client can do their own restores.